The UN Security Council unanimously endorsed on Monday the continuation of the United Nations interim force for Lebanon, UNIFIL. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro reaffirmed the availability of the executive branch to act as mediator in the peace processes in Colombia in the face of a possible coup d'etat against the government of Gustavo Petro. And the commander of the United States Southern Command, Laura Richardson, said on Monday that the U.S. relationship with Argentina is made of iron. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The UN Security Council unanimously endorsed on Monday the continuation of the United Nations interim force for Lebanon, UNIFIL. This decision represents a major setback for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is demanding the withdrawal of the force. Israel received a barrage of worldwide criticism when it became known that its occupying army forces had wounded several members of UNIFIL. The UN peacekeeping chief, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, explained that the Council had expressed unanimous support for the mission in Lebanon. The Zionist premier accuses them of cooperating with the Lebanese resistance, but human rights activists point to him for wanting to eliminate any witness to genocide perpetrated by his forces.
Besides that, this was a decision that was very carefully considered based on a number of elements and criteria. Of course, safety and security of the peacekeepers is a paramount priority, but there are a number of other elements, and one of them is the responsibility that we have and UNIFIL has in regard to the mandate that was given to it by the Security Council. It's a Security Council.
Heavy fighting has been raging since early Tuesday morning on the southern border of Lebanon. The resistance is keeping at bay the Zionist troops that have made several attempts to penetrate the territory through the Rabtalin area. The occupiers' artillery is supporting the genocidal troops by shelling residential areas of Al Taibeh and Deir Zion, but the combat on the ground is more complex. A few hours ago, Hezbollah issued a statement confirmed that in the midst of their struggle in defense of the Palestinian cause and in support of their honorable resistance, they are confronting the Zionist infantry. The Israeli regime committed 4 new massacres against Palestinian families in the Gaza Strip, leaving more than 60 people killed and 220 wounded in the last 24 hours. According to health sources, several victims are still on the rubble and on the roads, so they warned that death toll could increase. They also warned that since the beginning of the Israeli aggression in October 2023, more than 42,300 Palestinians have been killed and 98,684 others have been wounded, mostly women and children. According to the estimates of the medical authorities, some 10,000 people are still missing on the rubble and have not been rescued, so the number of dead could be higher. In addition, about 50 Palestinians were arrested by the Israeli regime in the occupied West Bank. The increase in arrests is concentrated in the governorates of Bethlehem and Jenin, as well as in other Palestinian localities. In this regard, the Palestinian Prisoners Society and the Committee for Detainees and Former Detainees Affairs denounced that the Israeli occupation is advancing its aggressions during the tensions by subjecting the victims and their families to harassment and threats. And the Euro-Mediterranean Observatory for Human Rights confirms that more than 400,000 Palestinians living in the north of Gaza could die of hunger and thirst, denouncing the serious situation in the refugee camps. Jabalia, Beit Hanun, and Beit Lahaya are the areas of refuge for displaced persons most besieged by the famine imposed by the occupation. Constant shelling by the occupying forces has prevented the entry of humanitarian missions for the past 10 days. Hundreds of Palestinians faced with a difficult situation to which they are subjected, especially children and the elderly, decided to go to a collection center on Monday, which hours later was bombed by the genocidal army, killing 10 people. In Cuba, people marched on Monday to condemn the genocide perpetrated by the Israeli government for more than a year against the Palestinian people and other Middle East nations. This way, the demonstration called by the Communist Youth Union of Cuba denounced the complicity of Washington in the Zionist onslaught that has caused more than 42,000 deaths in the Gaza Strip, most of them women and children, and more than 2,000 in Lebanon. In the capital, Havana, participants marched from the Martí Force to the Anti-Imperialist Tribune. In the rest of the country, there were open tribunes to demand the end, without conditions or delays, of the Israeli escalation in the Middle East. Palestinian student Manuel Altamina, the Secretary of International Relations of the Communist Youth Union of Cuba, Mirza Brossard, and the Palestinian doctor graduated in Cuba, Watan Jamil Alabed, emphasized Cuba's historic solidarity with the Palestinian cause.
I have been here for 5 years, and we feel that Cuba has been like a second home for us. The Cubans have been very supportive of us. The case of Palestine has been like a case of theirs. They don't give many opportunities to express to the world what Palestine is suffering.
Esta marcha es como parte de actividades que está promoviendo la Unión de Jóvenes Comunistas en el país.
This march is part of the activities being promoted by the Young Communist Union of the country, which has been taking place throughout Cuba. Rallies, meetings, denunciations, training processes, and talking to our people to raise awareness, especially to give a lot of information about the Palestinian cause, with courses, drawings, messages from our Cuban children to the Palestinian children. We have a responsibility given to us by our revolution, by our humanist project, and by our commander, Fidel Castro Ruz, to feel deeply any injustice committed in any part of the world. As Che taught us, and in this case, it is an injustice committed in Palestine by the Zionist state of Israel in complicity with the United States.
Una vez más, Cuba no es indiferente ante el genocidio acelerado.
Once again, Cuba is not indifferent to the accelerated and televised genocide that we are living today in Palestine. Cuba once again shows its solidarity with the Palestinian people in the streets. In spite of the difficulties, the rains, the changes that have been made, we were finally able to achieve this march. More than 60,000 people from Havana gathered.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro reaffirmed the availability of the executive branch to act as mediator in the peace processes in Colombia in the face of a possible coup d'etat against the government of Gustavo Petro. During his program Con Maduro Más, with Maduro more than in Spanish, the Venezuelan head of state recalled when Venezuela intervened in the peace negotiations in Colombia under the government of Juan Manuel Santos. The Venezuelan president reiterated that Venezuela will always be willing to support and accompany the dialogue processes in Colombia, assuring that the welfare of Colombia is the welfare of Venezuela.
We received the request from President Petro to help in the peace in Colombia, and we are helping, always with prudence. I do not practice microphone diplomacy, nor does the Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Hill practice Microsoft diplomacy. You will never see a statement from me or the foreign minister or a Venezuelan official on the internal politics of Colombia. So I am evaluating this proposal, and if we assume it, and the Colombian society, the Colombian government agrees to be mediators so that there is no coup d'etat in Colombia, we would do it with the greatest prudence, the greatest loft, and the greatest tranquility. What I can tell you is that Caracas has its doors open. Caracas, the cradle of Bolívar, the creator of Colombia, the founder of Colombia, the liberator of Colombia. Caracas, the cradle of Bolivar, is open for there to be a dialogue in due time, so that there is no coup d'etat, so that the constitution is not violated. Because if it goes badly for Colombia, it goes badly for Venezuela. And if it goes well for Colombia, it goes well for the both of us. Because we are brothers, so we are evaluating. And as soon as we evaluate the proposal made to me, which is very complete, very serious, very professional, we will make an official statement.
The Venezuelan president condemned the recent statements made by the former president of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos, in which he stated that the criminal sanctions policy of the United States on Venezuela is very soft.
Yo lamento mucho que él haya tomado el peor camino contra Venezuela.
I regret very much that he has taken the worst path against Venezuela, that he is the architect of the destruction of the historical relation between Colombia and Venezuela that existed in the past. Brother peoples, Juan Manuel Santos in Colombia is not worth half a peso. He is a failed politician. He is a man who can't go out to the streets. Nobody wants him. When he does this, it is because, look, there is a lobby that pays a lot of money and they call him. There is a lot of money on Venezuela to try to harm our country, to hurt the historical relations between Venezuela and Colombia that we have rebuilt between President Petro and me, and now they are flourishing, buoyant. The economic, political, cultural, diplomatic, educational relations between Venezuela and Colombia. Nobody is going to damage them. Juan Manuel Santos, you are not worth half a peso in the Colombian politics, so I don't even ignore you, Juan Manuel Santos.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro announced changes to the general staff of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces in order to continue to guarantee the independence, security, and peace of the country. The Venezuelan head of state informed the ratification of General-in-Chief Vladimir Padrino Lopez as Minister of People's Power for Defense and General-in-Chief Domingo Antonio Hernandez Lares as head of the Strategic Operational Command. On the other hand, Maduro announced the appointment of Major General Johan Alexander Hernandez Lares as General Commander of the Bolivarian Army and Admiral Ashraf Abdel-Hadi as Commander of the Bolivarian Navy. The Bolivarian president thanked the outgoing officers for the fulfillment of their responsibilities and wished success to those who hold the new positions. In Ecuador, 14 of the 16 pre-candidates aspiring to the presidency in the 2025 elections have already secured their names on the ballot. The National Electoral Council affirmed on Monday that the voting schedule is moving forward without inconvenience. Among those confirmed are the current president, Daniel Noboa, who took office in November 2023 after the early departure of Guillermo Lasso, and now seeks re-election for a full 4-year term. There was also confirmed the candidacy of Luisa Gonzalez and her partner Diego Borja, who are running for an electoral alliance between the Citizens' Revolution movement led by former President Rafael Correa and the Total Renovation movement. The government of Ecuador also announced the intensification of power cuts to address the energy crisis after failing to recognize the hydrological deficiency. Minister of Energy and Mines, Ines Manzano, indicated that the power cuts will be implemented from October 14th to the 20th for up to 10 hours. Manzano excused that the measure is due to the low water levels in the Masar reservoir as part of the consequences of the drought that is affecting the country, although the power cuts were implemented before the announcement of hydrological deficiency in the main reservoirs of Ecuador. In a general report, the military entity, together with the Electric Corporation, warned that the blackouts could last until the year 2025. And we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found your break? Don't go away. Welcome back. The commander of the United States Southern Command, Laura Richardson, said on Monday that the U.S. relationship with Argentina is made of iron. Commander Richardson also affirmed that the trip to China by President Javier Milei does not generate a problem because it is a sovereign decision. During this period, Argentina sought to strengthen its ties with the United States, adopting economic and diplomatic policies that favored U.S. interests. This approach included Argentina's participation in the U.S.-led peacekeeping missions and the adoption of neoliberal economic reforms that were welcomed by the U.S. government. And also in Argentina, the bicameral Commission for the Oversight of Intelligence Agencies and Activities will have a subcommission to investigate the illegal interrogations to which many of the people detained during the protests against the base law were subjected. The decision was taken unanimously last week by the members of this body, chaired by the radical Martin Lustó, national senator of Argentina. In the last few days, victims of the agent's actions have testified, and as of this Tuesday, deputies who were sprayed with a powerful pepper spray will give their testimonies. And the Peruvian Public Ministry reiterated their request for 20 years in prison against former President Alejandro Toledo in the interoceanic case. The former president is accused of receiving millions of dollars from a Brazilian company in exchange for allowing them to use the tunnels of the southern interoceanic highway during his administration. Prosecutor Jose Domingo Perez ratified that the guilt of the former president is proven. He recalled that Toledo accepted that the late Israeli businessman Joseph Maiman, the main beneficiary of the bribe, paid the mortgage of his house. Toledo also faces charges for the Odebrecht and Ecoteva cases. In Mexico, the plenary of the Chamber of Deputies approved in general the amendment to the General Law of the Electoral Institutions and Procedures in order to issue the secondary laws of the reform to the federal judiciary. The reform was approved by 336 votes in favor by the Morena, PT, PVM parties, and 123 votes against by the PRI, PAN, and MC parties. The reform defines the preparation of the election, the call for elections, nomination of candidates, election day, counting and summation, allocation of positions, qualification of the election, and declaration of validity, as well as the electoral campaigns with emphasis on citizen participation. On Monday was presented the report Data That Hurts Us, Networks That Save Us. The study was presented by the Mesoamerican Initiative of Women Human Rights Defenders and reveals that 200 activists have been murdered since 2012. The extensive report also records more than 35,000 aggressions. The study states that 8,926 women defenders and 953 organizations have been targeted of attacks. The authors of the initiative affirm that this violence has collective impact as it sends intimidating messages to those who dare to challenge the patriarchal order and fight for social justice. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.